Alright, Rabotai, Parashat Korach. This shiur is dedicated to Refuah Shlema of Ariel ben Rivka, Yaran ben Mazal, Chaim Israel Halevi ben Batya, Ilana Rivka bat Rachel, and Mazal bat Leah. I read Parashat Korach twice already. One in Israel and one now because they are ahead of us in a week. So it's kind of strange, but gives you time to, I guess, digest things better. So Parashat Korach mainly deals with the story of Korach and the effort of Korach, which at the time was one of the most important, influenced, educated, smart people in Am Yisrael, and of course with him and his group, to really challenge the leadership of Moshe and Aaron, and really try to make an effort to take that leadership for themselves. They, I guess, want to do a hostile takeover or whatever that is. The parasha starts with the words, Vayikach Korach, and Korach took. Of course, it does not say what Korach took. Vayikach Korach, but what did he take? Where did he take it? What was the reason that he took what he took? What was the purpose? So the Mefarshim says, what Korach took was a bad advice. He got a bad advice. In other words, somebody gave him a bad advice, and he took it to basically teach us that it does not make a difference how smart you are, how intelligent you are. A, everybody needs a good mentor. B, everybody has a point of vulnerability. And that point of vulnerability, if you think that is different from one person to the other, you're wrong. That point is identical to all of us. That point has a name. It's called ego. And that's exactly what we are most vulnerable, regardless of how smart we are. Now let's keep this in mind. The Zohar explains, we're going to do a little bit Kabbalistic today, since everybody is away, I don't know where they are over there, but we're going to keep it Kabbalistic a little bit. So the Zohar explains that Aharon HaKohen was considered, as the Zohar says, as the apparatus, the chariot, the vessel for the sfera of chesed, for the attribute of kindness of chesed, which is the power of the right side. I know it would sound a little bit political, but yes, Kabbalistically, politically, I'm telling you, it's right on the dot. So the koach of the kav yemini, of the right side, is the koach of giving, of compassion, of love, of influencing good without any boundaries. And Korach, that was from Shevet Levi, really represents the sfera of gvura. Right? What is gvura?
Strength.
Strictness. Which is the power of the left side, right? Left. Which really symbolizes our will to receive for ourselves. Of course, everything has a purpose and everything has a reason, and you need both of them, and that's why everything needs to be balanced. In each one of us, those two parts, those two segments exists within ourselves. And Korach, in a way, wanted to put left in front of right. He wanted to make the left side the ability to receive to make it more dominant in the rights. And by the way, this is something that it's not necessarily restricted only to Korach and his buddies and his gang with Moshe and Aaron. It is a struggle that basically goes all the way back to Cain and Hevel, and in a way to how the world was created and then later on was adapted to. So that's and we have this all the time. So it basically starts from the early times, earliest time in human history, all the way to our days. And maybe he was right. Maybe Korach was right. Maybe Korach had the point, because the idea behind creation is really to make good for the people who were created, right? And therefore it's all about giving to us and us receiving. So maybe left is more important than right. Receiving better than giving is better. So in a way, how are we actually going to enjoy from the goodness of God, from the goodness of Hashem, if we're not going to receive? According to Korach, that's what the world was created to give us. So we should, if that was the world, so therefore we should receive. So therefore, your willingness to give, I'm sorry, it's not appropriate. You are going against the way the world was supposed to be created. But what? As soon as we are thinking to receive to ourselves only, we are in a change of formation, and we are in a state of separation. And we are separated from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, from God. We are separated from the force of life. And the force of life is really to be able to do good and to give, because that's how the world exists, because God gives. Yes, we receive, but the actual force of life is the giving. So, in a way, I would say that's somewhat of a paradox. But the solution is really, how do we solve it? The solution is really to outsmart it. In other words, our way to deal with that is to receive in order to give. Or as the Torah says that, ve'afta lereacha kamocha, which is the whole concept of the Torah, and that's how it really comes, Kabbalistically speaking, into the middle ground between Chesed and Gvura in the form of Tiferet, which is the Kav Emtzai, which is represented by Yaakov, which is represented by Am Yisrael, which kind of gives us a little bit an introduction to what we're going to speak later on or down the road. The big problem that Korach and his people did, and they caused a tremendous problem, is quite understood now that if we will look at the spiritual structure of the world. In the spiritual structure of the world, there are, Kabbalistically speaking, there are 10 sferot. 9 give all the time. They are the mashpia. And then what do they give it to? They give it to the 10th sfera, which is sfera of Malchut. So therefore, the sfera of Malchut is the receiving receptacle, is the receiving vehicle that receives all this abundance that comes down from all the other 9 sferot, trickles down to all the 9 sferot down. Of course, it's an idea. And because of that, we need to connect between the two. There has to be a connection. Now, Chazal tells us that the Korach's claim against Moshe Rabbeinu is as follows. He says, a house that is full of Sifrei Torah doesn't need a mezuzah. Oh, the whole house is full of Sifrei Torah. What's holier, the Torah or mezuzah? The Sefer Torah. So if I have a whole house, we don't need a mezuzah?
Yes.
And mezuzah, we know yes, but that was his question. Now, mezuzah corresponds with malchut. Mezuzah in Gematria, the numerical value of Gematria of mezuzah is 65, which corresponds with the Shem Adnut. Right? that is also the name of Malchut. Now, the blue, the tchelet of the tzitzit, is also Malchut. The tzitzit that were, by the way, when I was in Israel now, I was really surprised how many people wear tchelet. I was really surprised. So the color, I mean, if we look at Shara Gvanim of the Ramak, he brings a different sferot with different corresponding colors. So the color of Malchut is either blue or black. Well, depends on what status the Malchut is. It becomes either blue or it becomes black. And sometimes you see like those fancy custom-made cars that are like midnight blue. That if you look at them in a certain angle, they look black, and then if you look at them when the light hits, they actually this blue color. Very fascinating. For me, it's always I call it Kabbalistic cars. It's like weird. Depends how. It always shows you how. So that's really, of course, the state of Malchut is either blue or black. That's why before he says that a talit that is all tchelet, in other words, a talit that is a whole entire representation is Malchut, therefore should not get, the beged does not eat a tzitzit, because it's all Malchut, so it doesn't need it. So later on, of course, he says the opposite, about a house with a mezuzah. So in other words, we don't need the Malchut. In other words, when you're talking about this, you basically what we call kitzetz banetiyot. So you're cutting down and separating. And you need to understand that the machloket of Korach was basically an act of heresy. Not because Moshe Rabbeinu is somewhat of a god or something like this. In Judaism, that does not exist. A man is a man and a man is a man. That's it. Again, God is God and man is man. There's no in-between stages of But what his claim was against the certain mitzvot that Moshe Rabbeinu brought down as was prescribed to him by God himself, that was his claim. He didn't want to keep those mitzvot. That's why he specifically took the mitzvah of tzitzit, represents not only the whole entire Torah, tzitzit keneged kol haTorah kula, because it has a lot of symbolism why the tzitzit is the whole entire Torah. We're not going to get into this now. And also because it represents Malchut. So he did not agree not only with the halachot that are brought down from HaKadosh Baruch Hu to Moshe Rabbeinu, he had a problem with the whole arrangement of the spiritual world to begin with. That doesn't get greater heresy than that. So, what separates Malchut from the 9 Sferot that give influence, really, if you do so, really blemishes the whole system of those Sferot, and that's called Palaga. The flog is to divide. And those people of the Machloket in our Parashat are called Anshei Shem, men of great stature. Anashim is always importance, and they had a name, right? And in Dora Palaga, in the time of Noach, it also says Anshe Hashem, Hema Giborim Asher Me'olam Anshe Hashem. So it's the same issue over there, and it's the same issue over here. Korach creates a separation between the Sferot, and then it disconnects him from Moshe Rabbeinu. He wants to disconnect it from Moshe Rabbeinu, and Moshe Rabbeinu is our connection through which is the vehicle, which the mitzvot comes down, that in a way connects between the Sferot, which the upper Sferot, to the Sferot of our body. Dora Palagai, at the time of Noach, also tried to separate themselves from what we call Da'at Ha'elyon. In other words, from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They didn't want to do that. They wanted to do what they wanted to do. And they also got lost from this world. So there is an issue of disconnect and connection here between what we call the moach, the intellect, and the heart, which is the emotion. The Kohen Gadol, which Aaron, which Korach was cholek on, had a whole, uprising against, really wears the tzitz on his head. Wears the golden engraved plaque on his head, which really represents the moach. The tzitzit that we wear is keneged halev, right? So that's the representation of the tzitzit. Looking inside the heart. The number of the string of the tzitzit is 32, which is corresponding with the 32 paths of wisdom in which the world was created. And we need to have this connection between the moach and the lev, between the intellect and the heart, between intellect and emotion. And even with that, Korach did the machloket, because he was cholek on the kehuna, on actually the priesthood, and he did not want to connect between the tzitz and the tzitzit, between the heart and the mind, and in the brain, the intellect. Now, today we have the same thing. I was in Israel now, and I hear whatever is happening there, and you see all these people really rising up against Jewish people, secular people, against mitzvot. And they do it as individuals, on buses, in the streets. They do it as groups of people. They always pick up something and then they go around about it. The famous thing is about going to the army. The truth of the matter is the Israeli army does not need so many people as they have right now. And they actually, I forgot which rabbi says. He said, I couldn't wait for all Am Israel to be Haredim. So they ask him why. What do you mean? He says 50% of Israeli youth does not go to the army, and they're not Haredim, so they just go like everybody else. They get a waiver. The army doesn't need so many people. It's just a vehicle for them to bash the people who show. It's not about the army. It's about your way of life. People think, I'm going to go to Israel, it's going to be so much better. It is not right now. Religiously right now, going to Israel is terrible. I don't care what anybody says. It's terrible because there's a great and eminent threat, not only on the physical being of Am Yisrael in Israel, from Iran, from within, with the Arabs in Israel, the Israeli Arabs, but also greater one for the spirit of Am Yisrael from the secular Jews themselves in great numbers and droves. And that it happens, they take a mitzvah and they start rhetoricing around some idea. Of course, they always twist it. We'll show you later on in the end how. But the truth of the matter that it's a danger. It's dangerous. It's dangerous. And don't get caught up with slogans and ideas and all kind of movements and so on and so forth. You don't need that. You don't need to be Zionist, you don't need to be this, you don't need to be that. You are already something. You are a person, a Jew, Shomer Torah and Mitzvot. What in the world do you need more? You don't need anything more. If you care so much about your people, well, there are plenty of people here in America to help. That nobody helps. So don't tell me about going to the army. That's the problem of if the Jewish people, if the frum people will go to the Israeli army, they will solve the problem. That's a bunch of hot potatoes. If you do this, they're going to pick something else. It is all exactly what Korach wanted to do, to create a separation between Am Yisrael, to create a separation between the moach and the lev. Now, it's done by individuals, it's also done in America, in all over the world, whether are individual people for their own purposes, whether it's politicians for their own purposes. There is a lack of unifying factors in society today, and we must address that. And you can't say, well, I don't care what happens in America, because you should care what happens in America. You should care. It's our job to show an example of how to do things right. Now, and that's exactly the issue of Esav, Yaakov's brother. He had a great brain. He was a very wise person. I mean, afterward, he was the son of Yitzchak and Rivka. He wasn't just like a guy from I don't know what. He was a smart person. He had Sayed Bipiv. He could capture people with his words. We always think Sayed Bipiv, he gave him food. He was a demagogue. He knew how to speak. He was a sweet talker. He was your local politician. Yo! Kohen, Kohanecha, Yilbeshu Tzedek. But with Esav, there was a completely disconnect between the moach and the lev, and the heart. That's why only his head is in Me'arat HaMachpelah, which is, by the way, in Hebron, which Hebron is still a Jewish city, place, occupied by Arabs. And I'm not embarrassed to say that. And we need to say that. Yes, the land of Israel is an occupied territory, but is occupied by Arabs who migrated in and took it over from our place. It's our homeland. I was very upset, and I'm going to say it online, I don't care. I was very upset, and I really held myself together. I was in Jerusalem, just going down to the Kotel, and comes this Israeli tour guide, and he's explaining to a bunch of tourists the horrible thing that happened in because the day that I was there in Jerusalem, that's the day that the 1967 war had started. And the tragedy of the Palestinians that lost their homeland, blah, 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 blah. I felt like dealing with him, but I said it's just going to aggravate a situation. Then I said, chamor. He's a donkey. I'm not going to stop, because that's what they want. There was no Palestinians at the time. There was no Palestinian nation. There was no Palestine. There was nothing. And it's not their homeland. It's our homeland. And they are sitting in our homeland. And my biggest sad point in this whole trip to Israel now, that I did see my mother getting old, and it's very upsetting to me because I'm here and she is there and I cannot help her. But even greater than that was to see how the Israelis are abounding and they dumping areas in the Galil and all over. They just giving it up. And I just don't understand that. And you want me to go there? You want me to come there where you giving everything out away? Well, sorry. I better move to Texas than to go there. Because if I'm going to move there, I'm going to be another object of separation. I'm going to be another number who is separated from his people. I don't want to be separated from my people. I would rather go to Texas and do kiruv there and reach out to my brothers and sisters who are not close to Judaism, bring them to Judaism. It's not about me. It's about us. I want to be a unifying factor, not another divided statistic. And that's something that we should all take into heart. Guys, we are 2 months away from Rosh Hashanah. 2 months away. 2 months away. It is crazy how time passes. Let's not waste it on nonsense. Let's do something that is going to be beneficial to Am Yisrael, for crying out loud. Let's put everybody together. Let's be a unifying factor. And that's what I'm talking about. The heart and the mind are two separate things, but we need to connect them together. We are not allowed to also erase the boundaries between the two, to make those blurred boundaries. We need to be quite defined. You cannot switch them around. We need to connect them. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God made a havdalah, He made a separation, but He created a connection. And if you look at the Etz Chaim of Kabbalah, those 10 sferot don't just float up in the air. They all connect to one another and interact like this network. Yes, it all comes down to Malchut because the whole purpose is to give, but they're all connected. They're all influencing one another. And the Havdalah is to really define each one boundaries, in his duty, but it's not a duty of separation from the klal, from the general, but on the contrary, by defining each boundary is to really able to connect them so they can do their job. That's why we need to have a mother and a father. We can have two mothers or we can have two fathers. These are jobs that could be done only by that defined job. You can't be the CEO of a company or the mailman. They're all important, but they're very defined jobs. Korach disagreed with that separation as well. And how did he disagree with that? He used the word Kulam Kedoshim. We are all holy. And also on the connection between the matters. You see, the Torah gives us tremendous clarity. The Torah tells us exactly who is a Kohen, who is a Levi, who is an Israel. That's a separation. The connection between the two, how they're all connected, the Kohanim are not by themselves, the Levim are not by themselves, and the Israel are not by themselves. What's the connection? Each one has a job. If there were no Israel, the Kohen has nobody to give a bracha to, or to become the channel to give the bracha to, because they don't give the bracha, God gives the bracha. And if there's no Kohanim, there's no channel to give it down. We need everybody, and we need defined jobs. The heart does not complain, why am I a heart? Why am I not the brain? It's all one body. And we need to understand that we as Jews are all one body. You can't speak in why am I like this or why am I like that? It's not about you. It's about your job for the klal, for the body that's called Am Yisrael. The Midrash explained to us that we need to create an overlapping and in a way to create more, to make the right side a little bit more dominant. In other words, love and giving, to make it more dominant. Because it is the frequency in which we could connect to the abundance, to the shefa. The mazal, the bracha in the universe, right? All comes through that. And the small, the left side, which is really taking care of ourselves, is basically a seesaw that we are all the time, right? To be between Aharon or Korach. We're always in a situation of like, we don't know it's a light or it's a shade or it's a dark or and so on and so forth. We don't know whether it's giving or being selfish, whether it's a Kohen or it's a Levi. We need to understand that in order to succeed in life, we need to give up also on the need to prove that I am right. People don't care if along the line they will destroy everything they work hard for just to prove that they were right. And I saw it more than anywhere else in interpersonal relation between a husband and wife. People had, okay, fine, you were right and she was wrong, or the other way around. But are you willing to take it to the point that your marriage is going to be destroyed over the point that you were right? Is that worth it for you? Some people get so much into this persuasion that I'm right, they say, yes, it is. Because they can't even admit, no, it's not. Yeah, okay, so you're right. Then what's the big deal? You don't need to always prove that you are right. You don't need to go all the way to the end. Tamut nafshim plishtim, to prove that you are right. We need to learn sometimes to give this up. we need to, in a way, have a delay reaction to Midat Adin within ourselves, inside of us. We can't allow a Kadosh Baruch Hu, and the remes for that is in the world, because Midat Adin means immediate punishment. You did something, bang, you get like this. You did something, bang. There's no delay reaction. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said the world itself cannot exist. That's why he introduced Midat HaChesed to Midat Adin, and the Chesed overpowers it. In a way, it's like, what do you think is more effective? To have a steel fist wrapped with cotton, or to have a steel fist or cotton ripped, a cotton fist ripped with steel? I mean, you will kill the person. So you need to be internally strong but externally soft. I know it sounds like martial arts, but yes, you better believe that it sure is. You need to adapt all the time, but within boundaries. Within boundaries. That's why you need the strong core with a soft external part. You would need it. Otherwise, you'll be crushed. We need to understand that the internal struggle of Aaron and Korach happens in each and every one of us. And our humanity inside of us is being expressed in our ability to overpower Aaron over Korach, and by doing so, connecting to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And you don't, even you think you're right, you don't have to go all the way to think you're right. And as in terms of the reward, Chazal already told us, Kol haboreach min hakavod, anybody who escapes or runs away from being honored, hakavod rodef acharav. So he's going to be honored by the fact that he doesn't need it. That's a true honor. When we're going to understand the essence of giving and the essence of unity as a superior goal in our lives, unity and giving, thank you, what we call ahavat chinam, one love. I love you because I love you, not for anything. Not only we're going to be a better world, I think we're going to also have better lives altogether in terms of ourselves and so on and so forth. We need to make that into our goal. And by the way, this is not only on a national level, this is on a family level and also internally for us. And yes, you do need to love yourself. Because it does say, Ve'afta lereacha kamocha. So I need to have a measurement of which I love my fellow human being. Well, I need to love myself as well. And that's the receiving forgiving. If I don't love myself, I cannot love anybody else. I don't have any kind of point of reference. Ve'afta lereacha kamocha. It doesn't say ve'afta le'atzmecha and that's it, and you love yourself. Or ve'afta lereacha. Just love your fellow human being. No, you need to have a reference to yourself as well. That's the connection between the two. So, and it does say, when you reach that, so then the sky is the limit, really, guys. The sky is the limit. As we say, mevakesh al chavero ne'enat chila. In other words, to tell us that the question here is not really who is right and who is wrong. And we should not always look for, as they say, justice and so on and so forth. Why? Because what the Zohar says, mishiba b'machloket en lo kiyum. If you, coming in to create separation, to create arguments, you're not going to make it. You're not going to make it. And that's why people who are always looking to put, to what we call divide and conquer, really their lives is not lives, because they become miserable people. Because they are obsessed with dividing and conquering, because they think that that's how they're going to get control of a situation. So ultimately, this whole big tararam that they make is not only just for doing the right thing, is doing the selfish thing, because ultimately it's all about themselves. So all these people who tell you this kind of people against this kind of people, blacks against white, white against greens, greens against red, I don't know, whatever you got it there. They don't do it because they really care about this group who care about the other group. Because they all care about this themselves. But I'm sorry to tell you, every idiot can do that. The real chacham is a person who knows how to put people together. Together. Why did I love it in Israel? Because I saw Jews over there of all shapes and colors and forms, and I went to a shul, man, like crazy. There are black Jews, white Jews, brown Jews, red Jews, I don't know, whatever you got there. Who cares? They're all davening together. It's a yofi. If I would look at the prayer itself, I'll tell you the truth, nothing to write home about. But I had a blast. Why? Everybody was talking. I felt like in some kind of a young Israel somewhere in, I don't know what, Long Island, Everybody was talking. But I look at for a second, I said, okay, leave this to the side 1 second. Look how nice they are with each other. There are some people there, I told you yesterday, they came to celebrate the wedding of one of their friends. For crying out loud, who comes to shul, who comes to synagogue with 3/4 pants, a t-shirt, and flip-flops? But the guy insisted on having a black kippah, because that's the real thing. And it was welcome, and he felt good, and I said, wow, that's amazing. I don't care about the davening at this point. I tell you the truth, I don't think even HaKadosh Baruch Hu cares about the davening at that point. Because that probably was the best davening. Why? Because they were all together. Sometimes when we said our words, do we really mean what we say? I mean, in a way, sometimes I hate to say it, but I feel like we're lying. Are we really care about our people here and there and everywhere? Or are we just saying these words because that's what need to be said? Chas v'shalom to say, but it's like tefillat sheker almost. Hashiva shoftenu k'barishona. We want this? Do we really care about other? But so for me, there was a great tefillah experience. Everybody was in such harmony with one another. There were Temanim there. There were Breslevs there. I cannot even tell you. There were Jews that I've never seen these categories before in my life. I was so happy. I felt like I was in Bet HaMikdash. They were comfortable with one another. There were unity. There was unity in the place. I think, listen, I could be wrong, but I think that at the end of the day, that's probably more beneficial that we all praying together and we're singing in harmony. Because, if you want harmony, you can go to a church. We want the heart, not the harmony. So it's not about having, and the Chazan there, let me tell you, he sounded like Kermit the Frog. But it was great. Because he came from the heart. I don't want a chazan that it's all about the voice, but it's empty on the inside. I want a chazan that prays from his heart. His voice doesn't make a difference to me. I have ringing in my ears all the time anyway. What do I care? I want the heart. That unity together, it was a tremendous experience. And the funniest thing that when I was there was Parashat Korach that they read, because again, they had a week ahead of us in Israel. And I said, this is the antidote for what Korach had done to us. This unity, this acceptance, that the fact that I don't care if you're an Ashkenazi wearing a Sephardi talit, or you're a Temani wearing an Ashkenazi talit, or you have peot, or you don't. There was even a guy there, a Sephardi guy, with a shrimer, for crying out loud. Sfaradi. He had a tchelet on his tzitzit. He was wearing the zebra coats. Those, like Toldat Aaron kind of like, yeah. But זה היה שחור, זה ספרדי, with peot, with a shrimal. I was like, what is this, Purim? But he was so nice. He was so nice. I said, that's probably how Bet HaMikdash was. I love it. I love it. But what I know that I think is right about halacha doesn't mean anything. Because I should know what Hashem wants. Hashem wants, first of all, I don't need your halachot, I don't need your this, I need your unity. I want you to care for one another, first of all. What's the point if you're reading my halachot, you know pages of Gemara by heart backwards, if you can't stand another Jew? If you can't stand another Jew. I told you, when I saw the gabbai there, when those guys who came who were not, they were secular, for the you know, for the friend, it was a chatan. Yeah, so Shabbat chatan that they had. Now I don't know if it was a Shabbat chatan or it was an Ashkenazi ufruf, because I couldn't tell if the chatan is Sfaradi or Ashkenazi. I mean, like, I didn't know that. So the gabbai was in a point of the tefillah that you should not really talk, and he was actually talking and greeting them because he made them feel comfortable. So he was not thinking about himself, he was thinking about making these people comfortable. I don't know, I think that's beautiful. And I said, I guess because of him, they continue wearing the kippah even after they left the shul. That's amazing. Tell the guy, what, to go outside with the kippah. I said, but I think it's because the guy was so nice to him. He made them feel comfortable. Sit here, Chef Po. Where do you want to sit? You want to sit window, aisle? What? Look. And I'm saying, 1 second, so the part of tefillah, you can't be talking. But I said, wait a minute. Don't be so quick to judge. This is Parashat Korach. Tilmad mashu. Learn something. And I said, he is right. I don't know if I would be capable of doing that. But I guess there's something for me to learn and something for me to improve. He did it. And believe me, the guy was a very frum guy. So, the parasha ends specifically in the case of Maasrot, giving a truma of asirit, of 1/10 of what we have. It seems in a way like, why should I give anything for myself to somebody else? I work very hard for it and so on and so on. But really, if I want to really fulfill our goal to connect to the light of the abundance of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as we said before, we have to overpower right over left to make it more dominant, to really take care of others before we take care of ourselves. Now, regarding what Korach says, Kol Ha'edah Kedoshim, just want to point you out to Rav Shimshon Hirsch said, on his Perush on the Torah, on the claim of a Korach, everybody is holy. And he writes the following, Kol Ha'edah Kulam Einam Kedoshim Kvarata. They are not holy. The whole nation are not holy. They are Anshei Kodesh. They are a person of holiness. They themselves are not holy. They are people of holiness. In other words, those people, Anashim Ba'alet Tafkid Kadosh, the Edah, the Jewish people, are people with a holy job. Yehudam liyot kedoshim. Their purpose, their goal is to become holy. They need to continuously grow and develop to reach the goal, which you're never going to reach. Okay, I reached 100% of holiness. Therefore, it's an endless job for you to continue going up. So you can't say, Kol Ha'edah Kulam Kedoshim. They already reached this destination. Reaching this destination is also a point of heresy, because the only one who is holy by himself without any further up is only God. So when you say that the people reach this level, you are saying people are at the level of God. They have nothing to become more holy. And that's his heresy. Say what is something so important. Don't let them substitute reality with destiny, with their goal in life. They should not see themselves holy, mishum shehugdeshu liyad kadosh, because they were sanctified. Don't think that you are holy because you were sanctified for a holy purpose. Ela Yehudam HaKadosh, but rather their holy goal, the holy purpose, Yeh leneged elehem, is going to be in front of their eyes, kematara rechoka, is a long point to reach in the future in which you should strive for. And that's an amazing point that Rav Shimshon here says. People are connected too much to the future. They try to live too much in the world, in our world, exactly like Korach did. You walking around in the world, they're learning crooked opinions that everything is good, everything is allowed, everything is holy. And that's not true. So when you listen to the news and all of a sudden you come up with those crazy ideas, you know that you should really check yourself in to some spiritual, maintenance.
Clinic.
Say?
Clinic.
Clinic. I mean, yeah. In other words, come to yeshiva. Yes, you're right. And like, for example, people try to live in Israel in a way of, you hear it a lot in Israel, Kol echad va'emet shelo. Everybody in his own truth. That cannot be. There's only one truth. Or they make up sentences that are so distorted that they say, ish be'emunato yichyeh. Each one according to his belief. You hear it all the time in Israel, which is such a distortion of what Habakkuk says. Habakkuk did not say that. Habakkuk says, tzaddik be'emunato yichyeh, lo ish be'emunato. And in Israel they use it all the time. And don't let this seep into your being. It is not correct. It's a distortion. There's no difference between what those people say in Israel to what missionaries say about Isaiah 53. No difference. It's the same thing. You take a pasuk, a verse, and you distort it to serve your purposes. That's not good. And we see from here that therefore we need to stay away from machloket as far as we can. So if chas v'shalom, a person sometimes, without paying attention, lost a little bit of his situational awareness, came to a machloket, it doesn't make a difference, guys. It doesn't make a difference whose fault is that, or who is right or who is wrong. Just let it go. Just let it go. It doesn't bring it doesn't bear any fruit besides burnt ground. It doesn't bring any benefit, which is spiritual or physical. It destroys everybody around, including the person himself. It leaves charred earth behind. Nothing would grow. And even more so when it comes to Avodat Hashem. There is a difference between the machloket of Korach and the machlokot that we have in the Torah. And don't say, there's a machloket here, machloket there. Because the machlokot that we have in the Torah is to actually define the truth. And everybody contributes his opinion to come up to the truth, and then it's being defined. The machloket of Korach is my truth is a bigger truth than your truth. And that's the big difference between the two. We came here for one thing. We came here to do Avodat Hashem. And we are lucky enough that the path of destiny came in our way, that we are right now Shomer Torah Mitzvot. But we should keep that in mind, that it is our job to help our brothers and sisters who are not so fortunate. And we can only do so with a smile, with compassion, with unconditional giving. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.